when you are asking me about players that are not in the squad or in the roster, it's because I think in your mind you believe that they have right to be here. I think we need to respect the player at 26. If not, we are going to start to ask to the social media why is not one player or another and decide about that. Maybe you can ask me why Messi is not in the roster, no? This type of player, Maradona, Pelé, I don't know. But when you are talking about, different names, I think you need to respect the players that are here.
That's the quote. Oh, man, that's funny. It's just some guy. Like, if you're just talking to me about some guy, you don't have any right to question me. Let's just focus on the 26. Gotta love Mauricio Pochettino. Coming in hot with this. He won the press conference in your mind, Paul.
He did. He won the press conference.
He was solid and gave some good answers. Now, you had a chance to ask him about Christian Pulisic. Is that right?
Yeah,
I did. What did he say about Christian? I'm curious.
Well, I just want to take a breath here because that's what it felt like this was when it came to Christian Pulisic. Think about where we were less than 4 months ago. Mauricio Pochettino and Christian Pulisic. It felt like this relationship was frayed. You had Christian saying, I don't know why you didn't want to bring me. I wanted to come for the pre-tournament friendlies. You had Mauricio saying, I'm not a mannequin. I'm the coach. I decide who comes in. Today, he said he is the best player on our team. That's what he said. He is the best player in this team. And I think, and let's not forget, by the way, where Christian said that. He said it right here with CBS.
All what you want, baby.
That's right. And I think that is really important, that moment of acknowledgement of, look, like, this guy is really important to everything we do. And we haven't really heard Mauricio Pochettino say that. I think there has been purpose behind that. It goes to, the quote about Messi and Pelé. It goes to what he was talking about. If no one should feel like they have a role, what you did in the past doesn't matter. Well, Christian Pulisic said what he said. He rested. He said, I promise you, it's worth it. Trust me. I'm more motivated than ever. I'm hungrier. He's showing it. He's playing really well.
Out of his mind.
And so it's like, all right, he backed it up. And now Pochettino's saying, yep, okay, you're my guy. You're the most important player on this team, is what he said. And he also said he caught himself, and he smiled again because he caught himself saying, we have to have him ready for the World Cup. And he says, oh, you might say Mauricio, but no one has a spot on the team. But he goes, we have to call it what it is. Like, he's going to be at the World Cup. So, I think this is an important acknowledgement. They have to, though, Jimmy, find a way to unlock Christian the way he has been at Milan. Christian wants to play inside. He wants to be a number 10. I think he's at his best when he can get in space, when he can run at people, when he can dribble at guys. We can, go after those one-on-one matchups.
Wait, really quick before you keep going. Were you pleased with how he performed against Japan? Because we went to a back three. He's tucked it a little bit more centrally. I thought he did an excellent job, especially in setting up Balogun for his goal, catching the ball in the half turn, and then just driving into that space.
That's exactly what they need him to do.
Yeah, exactly right. So I didn't know if that was a performance that you liked from Christian.
Yeah, it is. But you need to make sure that you can get that consistently. And I think also when you bring Antony now back into the lineup and you have Dest, like that should cause enough headaches and overloads on the wings that it does open up space. But Christian has to be aggressive. He has to have that mindset instead of sometimes, I think a lot in the last window when he played centrally, they were able to kind of bracket him and deny him the ball, and he'd get frustrated. He'd start dropping deeper and deeper to get on the ball. Like, no, stay high, find those spaces, trust that they'll find you. And I thought he did a much better job of that against Japan, but that has to be the focus. If you're committing to this back three, making sure things are still running through Pulisic is important.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's a great shot. Well, speaking of Christian, I wanted to use that as a segue into the forwards. We got Patrick Agyemang, who he clearly adores, Mauricio Pochettino. We got Flo Balogun coming back in, obviously red hot and played very well in his time in the last window. Christian's in. Tim Weah is in. Zendejas, who's been red hot for club and country, scoring like career-defining goals. I mean, I still can't believe he chipped Keylor Navas from 18 yards out. I don't know if you haven't seen it yet, everybody. Go look up the Club America Pumas highlights. It's at the end. Ridiculous. What a goal. He was on the show. He talked about it. earlier this week, and then Haji Wright getting the call. So I'm excited to see how these players are utilized. Christian for sure is going to be in. And then the big question is, who's next to him? Malik Tillman should, I think, be involved in the forward section, but we'll bring him into the conversation here, and Diego Luna. And then who's going to be Balogun? So I think Balogun and Christian would start against Ecuador. And then it's just who's going to, if we're playing a back three, who's that other inverted winger? Who's that like second 10 next to Christian? Who are you leaning towards based on, what's your spidey sense telling you, Paul Tenorio?
I think it has to be Malik Tillman, right? He played so well for you at the Gold Cup. I think that Pochettino has shown a kind of loyalty to those types of players. He misses the last camp, as he's trying to get settled back in his new club at Leverkusen in Germany. I think it'll be him. The question then becomes, what do you do on the right side of the wing back? Do you take Tim Weah off?
Yeah,
the field?
that's what I was going to say. Right.
Do you put Freeman on? Where do you? I would guess. This is my guess that you start Tim Weah at the right wing back spot in the first game, and you see, can we attack with Weah the way we want to, or is he a little bit too uncomfortable? Are we losing too much defensively, especially if you don't trust all of your center backs?
Mm-hmm.
Where we're gonna go with Freeman, but I think it'll be those two, and I think that's the right call. I do think Weah, as much as I don't always love Christian being inside, I think Weah needs to be out on the touchline. I really don't like when he gets played on the left side because he's coming inside too much.
Right.
And he's been so effective at driving to the end line, serving dangerous balls back into the box.
Yeah.
I think he could be a really good fit there. I don't know. Do you think who else is an option? You think Diego Luna has a shot at it? You think Weah?
No. I think Luna has kind of shown what he's going to show for the national team. Yeah, there could be moments where he could step up and play, but I see him when I start to project how I think the World Cup's going to play out next summer, which is really fun to do, especially 8 months out, 7 months out. But I don't see him as a starter for us. I could see him, unless somebody's hurt or if there's a yellow card situation, maybe you throw him in. But ultimately, I see him coming off the bench based on the situation. Do we have a lot more of the ball? Do we need to break down a low block? What are we seeing there? That's where I think Diego Luna could be really efficient for us. But he's not the number one guy. I agree with you. I think it'll probably be Tillman. I'd like to see Tillman and Pulisic. And if you have Weah without Dest here because of injury, you put Weah out there. Freeman's kind of your backup. Arsene will now be your backup for Jedi. And now then really the big conversation with Balogun up top. So who are the 2 6s without Adams? And then who's going to play and what does the back three look like? If you have Ream and Richards, who's playing that basically right-sided? For me, it's probably between, there's 3 options. You have McKenzie, CCV, and you have Miles Robinson.
Miles.
So you have those are your 3 options. And again, it could be opponent based. And that's always, I think I said this before in the previous podcast, but what I do admire about Spain's and the French team and all that stuff. Speaking of which, the US U20s beat France 3-0 today. Shout out to the squad that got it done. Yeah, that's awesome. We can talk about that a little later, but that just happened a little, and I'm stoked because obviously France is stacked. But what I admire about that, they're so deep in every single position, so you could potentially roll out whoever based on the opponent, and or like you mentioned about CCV in the World Cup. Hey, we're going to play against the low block. This player is a better fit for what we're going to face, and so yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see Weah and Tillman. And that's ultimately what I'd like to see. We'll have plenty of time to get into our starting 11 stuff. But
you brought up a good point, though, right? Because this formation, you're saying, okay, who are the 2 deeper midfielders, the 2 6s, as you said? Like, is Weston a fit for that spot? He likes to kind of move, meander, kind of push forward a little bit. He likes to be that late arriving run in the box. Do we see him in the starting lineup? Do we see him on the field in that role? Do we have to be playing a back 4? And having kind of the 4-2-3-1 look to have Weston McKennie in the game? Because if you want 2 guys who are going to sit deeper, and you probably do because your wing backs are going to be pushing up the field, it's more likely that you see Tanner Tessman and Aiden Morris stepping into that type of role than you do Weston McKennie.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I think Weston's a player that could get squeezed in the system for sure. Like we talked about before, like if you really going to go with the wingbacks, and we could argue we have, when Dest is healthy and fired and Jedi's doing the same, we have 2 of the most dynamic wingbacks definitely in North America. Obviously Jedi's proven himself in the Premier League too. I mean, we have really, really, really good wingbacks. So let's lean into that strength, but that means we have to lose a midfielder. And the Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, those are the kind of guys that could get squeezed because you most likely need 2 6s to hold it down in front of a back 3, right? So they can help cover, and we can maybe take more risk in trying to create overloads and when we're trying to get forward out wide. What's interesting though, and you weren't on this, Paul, when I talked about this, but I thought what Christian Roldan did really well against Japan is that he sat so that Tyler Adams could go hunt. And Tyler Adams, for me, is at his best when he can hunt. When you're asking him to sit, you can just feel that he's got like itchy fingers, man. He just wants to, like, when can I go? Just release me. I want to run, you know? And the dude's a greyhound. He wants to just go track the ball. And if you get him all, you know, keep him on a leash, that's not as cool for him. Like, he can do it, but it's not what he loves to do. So when I think about that position, yeah, if you can have an aggressive 6, but when I think about Musa and Weston McKennie doing that, they don't do it the same way Tyler does. So if you really going to, for sure, if we talk about Christian already booking his ticket to the World Cup, Tyler Adams is going to be right there next to him. Great. Then this is really an audition for who can really sit in that hole and allow a Tyler Adams-like player to go and hunt. And I think this is going to be an interesting window to figure that out. So